The power of an ice storm. The mess, the misery, and the hundreds of thousands in the dark in Ontario and Quebec on this Thursday night. New details about the death of an Indigenous woman found in a Winnipeg landfill. What police have discovered about her final moments. David Johnston's mandate, what powers the former Governor General has been given to investigate foreign interference, and haunting memories of the Humboldt Broncos tragedy.
A semi-truck was coming our way and everything was black.
How family and friends are doing 5 years after the crash.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with severe weather and the impact of a major ice storm in central Canada. More than 1 million customers are without power after freezing rain coated trees and power lines across a big swath of southern Ontario and Quebec. The rain and ice has led to flooding in some areas, and at least one person is dead, struck by a falling tree. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau surveyed the damage today in his Montreal riding.
Our focus is very much on being there to support as necessary municipalities and the province as necessary. The federal government is here to help if needed.
Hundreds of hydro crews are busy across both provinces working to restore power as fast as possible, but people are being warned there are so many lines to repair it will take time, and they should be prepared to spend another night or more without electricity. Mike Armstrong has our top story tonight.
It is a storm people will be talking about for a while. First, there's how things got to this point. Wednesday, freezing rain fell for hours. By midday, it was knocking out power. By late afternoon, it was taking down trees. There were close calls for some. For others, a feeling things were almost surreal.
Towards evening, like 7 o'clock nighttime, it was just like a war zone. Trees, branches were cracking and falling. It was like everywhere.
Loud.
Loud, very loud. Sounds like gunshots almost.
The rain left a thick layer of ice basically on everything. The problem was weight. Every branch was heavier and not all of them could take it. Hydro-Quebec estimates there are close to 2,700 repairs to be made. It has more than 1,000 people out working, but the Premier is asking for patience.
We expect that tomorrow night at midnight we'll have 70 to 80% of the population that will have electricity back.
Now, Hydro-Quebec says it had crews ready for the storm. They just couldn't start until the freezing rain stopped. It meant as the problem got bigger, crews waited.
Some teams were on the field watching the situation, but most of the work we could only start this morning.
Repair crews are now being deployed based on where they can make the biggest impact. They're fixing breaks that will return power to the biggest number of people first. Now, complicating everything is that in some areas, cell phones don't work. The storm affected towers, meaning there's no access to the internet or communications when crews and the public need it most.
It's not fun. I can't contact anybody, not my parents, not my friends, nobody.
It's also meant scrambling to find the few stores that are open. People can't call ahead to check.
Yes, this is my third stop.
You found one?
Yeah, finally found one, I think. I haven't walked up yet.
It's nothing to compare to 98.
This storm has many people remembering another, the 1998 ice storm. The big difference is that one lasted longer, 5 days instead of one, and it affected transmission towers, the lines that carry power to cities. In this storm, it's the smaller distribution lines that are affected. Now, there has been one death, a man west of Montreal who was cutting a tree when a branch fell and killed him. Hydro-Quebec is asking people to leave jobs like that to professionals. Donna?
Good advice. Mike Armstrong in Montreal. Thanks. System kept moving east and hit Atlantic Canada overnight, causing sporadic power outages and treacherous driving conditions in some areas. A number of schools in the Maritimes were closed this morning, though the freezing rain has now transitioned to rain. This was a far-reaching storm system that stretched beyond Canada's border. Global News meteorologist Anthony Farnell is with me. Anthony, put this into context for us.
Donna, when you think April, you don't often associate it with ice storms, but it can occur when the ingredients are right. And that's just what we had for this widespread event that extended through eastern Ontario, Quebec, and as you mentioned, right into the Maritimes all day yesterday. there was heavy freezing rain. There were lightning strikes in this region as well. And all of this moisture associated with the storm that also brought tornadoes to the southern United States. But this is the difference. This Arctic high over northeastern Quebec, funneling up the St. Lawrence Valley, that low-level cold air that you need for freezing rain events. It also went into the Ottawa Valley. So that's where the amounts were heaviest. Locally, as high as 30 to 35 millimeters of ice accretion. And I was in Montreal for the 1998 ice storm. The Triangle of Darkness, that was on the South Shore. That was where the heaviest totals were that time. This time, it's right over Montreal, and that seems to be the worst of it. The good news is that once we get through this next threat, which is some strong winds tomorrow up to 60 kilometers per hour, we are into a pattern change that's going to affect basically much of Canada. Spring is arriving this weekend, next week, well above seasonal temperatures. Donna?
All right, Anthony Farnell, thank you. In the U.S., a string of devastating tornadoes and powerful storms have ripped across the country in recent weeks. According to the U.S. National Weather Service, there have been at least 478 tornado reports this year across 25 states. That's double the average for this time of year. And tonight, some 40 million Americans remain under severe weather warnings. Jennifer Johnson reports.
Americans are bracing for another round of wicked weather in a year that's on track to be one of the worst in history. The statistics are staggering. At least 478 tornadoes so far have been reported across 25 states.
Glen Allen will never be the same. There's no doubt about it.
This community, about 2 hours south of St. Louis, Missouri, was leveled. Residents are returning to their homes, finding little more than piles of rubble.
I was praying, hoping that we would get through it all right, and everybody else would, because just how strong you could feel the wind against the bathroom wall, it was just unbelievable.
That fence is gone over there.
This week, tornadoes left a trail of destruction from Iowa, south in Arkansas, across the Midwest and as far east as Delaware, and more are coming. Hundreds of flights across the country are delayed or canceled. This vicious weather shocking even the experts.
I've never seen a windier year ever in my life.
In Louisville, Kentucky, an entire apartment building was torn up, displacing all who lived here. States are turning to the federal government for aid as losses pile up well into the billions.
When you look at the devastation of this, it's going to be weeks upon months to be able to recover. It's a long journey ahead for the people that live here.
Thousands have lost everything. Volunteers are trying to help in any way they can. Hundreds in Arkansas are still needing basic necessities like food after devastating tornadoes there.
We did 1,800 hot dog meals for everybody. And we're just now getting ready and getting pumped for dinner, which is 900 chicken sandwiches.
Over the past 2 weeks, more than 60 people have died in tornadoes in the U.S. That's nearly triple the number this time last year. And the typically turbulent spring has just begun. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Winnipeg police have released new details about an Indigenous woman whose body was found in a landfill on Monday. Police considered the death of 33-year-old Linda Beardy suspicious, but after tips from the public, including witnesses who say they saw her climb into a garbage bin, they now say there is no evidence to suggest her death was a homicide.
So an autopsy was conducted on April 4th, and it confirmed that the injuries that the body sustained were consistent with that of a truck handling of the bin. There were no other injuries that suggest any kind of foul play.
Police say video surveillance showed Beardy climbing into the garbage bin alone. Her body was later discovered at the landfill. Her family said in a statement today they are devastated and heartbroken. The day after police and city crews moved in to clear a tent encampment on Vancouver's downtown Eastside, some people have already returned and many say they have nowhere else to go. Vancouver is not the only city dealing with unhoused people. It's an issue across North America as cities grapple with inadequate housing and shelter, plus the skyrocketing cost of living. Neetu Garcha reports on how Vancouver is trying to deal with the problem this time and why advocates say it's not enough.
Police have cordoned off a few blocks of Vancouver's downtown east side, and tents have popped back up in the same location where there was a mass eviction the day before.
What they're doing in the last 48 hours is really hurtful to the people in Tent City, because where are you going to put them? Where's the city putting them? hiding them.
The rapid escalation in the decampment, I think, caught a lot of us by surprise.
An estimated 100 people are seeking shelter. The city says it can't commit to offering enough spaces, and nonprofits in the area say many of their spaces are also full.
Do they end up in adjoining neighborhoods? And then what is the impact on those neighborhoods?
Community advocate Stephen Johnston says the evictions have put those displaced at more risk, and he's pushing for a steady, secure supply of housing.
Why do you think the city keeps doing this if it's not working?
They don't realize it's not working, I guess. I don't know. Because they're not the ones down here talking to everyone.
So why did Vancouver police and city staff choose to move in on the neighborhood now? Local officials point to a lack of public safety.
The longer the East Hastings encampment continues, the greater odds that more people will lose their lives and even more people will lose their homes.
More than 2 times a day, a person is being assaulted in the encampment, and approximately 1/3 of the assaults are serious assaults or involve a weapon.
It's one of the city's oldest neighborhoods, a community of communities which struggles with poverty, mental illness, substance use, and addiction. Johnston calls it a crisis stemming from a history of constant displacement.
We had Expo 86, where a number of residents were evicted from SROs. I would call it the first mass renoviction.
Far from the first decampment in the city, it's a familiar scene with no easy solution. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
The RCMP has arrested 2 women with suspected ties to ISIS who have been brought back from Syria. They're among the group of women and children who just returned to Canada after spending years in a detention camp in northeast Syria. The Crown is requesting a terrorism peace bond for the 2 women, which would mean they'd have to live under certain conditions for up to a year. Global Affairs confirms 4 mothers and 10 children were repatriated yesterday. A court ordered Canada bring back 6 Canadian women from the camp, but the repatriation did not go as planned. 2 of the women never got on the plane and are now missing. The federal government has laid out what powers former Governor General David Johnston will have to investigate foreign interference in Canada. No limits have been put on whom he can talk to in the course of his work. Mackenzie Gray is with me from Ottawa. Mackenzie, the terms of his job really matter because he can only investigate what he's given access to. So start with what exactly he's being asked to do.
Yeah, Donna, David Johnston's been given a broad mandate to look into allegations of foreign interference during the last 2 elections. And one of the biggest things he'll take a look at is what Justin Trudeau and his office knew about these allegations. And another key thing, he'll review what the Prime Minister's office did or didn't do to address any of the alleged interference. And that's a really important point, Donna, because we've asked the Prime Minister on a number of times what he knew and when he learned about these allegations, and he's never really given a clear answer on things like when he was briefed or what info he had. Now, Mr. Johnston will also review what kind of information was shared between departments like CSIS, the RCMP, and the Prime Minister's office to see if important info made it to where it was supposed to go. And to wrap it all up, Donna, Johnston will give recommendations to the Prime Minister about how to handle interference in upcoming elections.
And Mackenzie, what about access? National security concerns and cabinet confidence limits what can be made public, but will Johnston get to see that stuff?
Yeah, he's going to be able to review the classified documents and files that are covered by cabinet confidence, so he should have a pretty good understanding about what the government knew. But it's important for Canadians to know, just because Johnston gets to see that information doesn't mean it's going to go public. So unless cabinet confidence is waived and the classified documents are declassified by the Prime Minister, Johnston wouldn't be able to share the kind of details that are in those files when he issues his reports. And when those reports are come out isn't exactly clear either. All the Order in Council says is that he'll provide rolling updates with those reports. But there is one key date that we do know, Donna. It's May 23rd. And that's when Johnston's going to make his decision for the Prime Minister on whether or not to call a public inquiry into electoral interference.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thanks. The latest jobs numbers are out and they exceed what many economists were anticipating given inflation and interest rates. Canada's economy added nearly 35,000 jobs in March, the 7th consecutive month of gains. The national jobless rate held steady at a near record low of 5% for a 4th month in a row. Virtually all the jobs added were in the private sector, the biggest gains in transportation and warehousing. The average hourly wage is up just over 5% from last year. Help wanted on the farm coming up, the shortage of agricultural workers and what that could mean for all of us. On the one hand, low unemployment is a good thing. On the other hand, Canada's labour market continues to be extremely tight. There are staff shortages in just about every sector. Agriculture is being hit especially hard, and as farmers age and retire, there are few people lining up to replace them. Anne Gaviola looks at what that could mean.
There's help wanted on nearly every farm across Canada, and the shortage is poised to get much worse, according to new research by RBC.
This is placing the sector on the cusp of one of the most transformative labor transitions in this country's history.
40% of Canadian farmers are set to retire by 2033, and 66% of producers don't have a succession plan, which leaves the future of farmland up in the air. Within the next 3 decades, the labor shortfall in the agricultural industry is set to hit 24,000 workers.
There are many solutions to this multifaceted problem, including immigration with an eye on the skills needed in the agriculture sector. Automation is another way to address the labor shortage by using robots to perform the most dangerous and physically taxing jobs.
Montreal-based Nexus Robotics is commercializing machines that pull weeds from vegetable crops. Company founder Tarek Greenan says drawing more people into careers in agriculture is also important.
I ended up traveling across Canada after leaving engineering school and really fell in love with agriculture and specifically agricultural systems.
Experts say more people need to consider farming as a career to ensure Canada's food security and keep food inflation from spiraling.
It doesn't matter what background you have, you can still be involved in the sector, and I think that's what needs to be encouraged more across universities across the country.
I'm hoping that there's more encouragement for city kids like myself to participate in this industry because it's not going away anytime soon.
Proof that innovative minds can find new solutions to problems plaguing the industry. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Fiery reaction ahead. Lebanon's retaliation after Israeli police raid a Jerusalem mosque again. The situation continues to escalate in Israel after a second raid by Israeli police on Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. Israel says its army intercepted dozens of rockets fired from Lebanon. The IDF says most of the rockets were intercepted and no deaths were reported. It's a response to the hundreds of Palestinians arrested and in some cases beaten at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during the holy month of Ramadan. Israeli police claim they had to launch the raids because people armed with sticks and fireworks had locked themselves in the mosque and refused to leave. In France, public outrage continues weeks after President Emmanuel Macron's government passed controversial pension reforms. More violent clashes with police broke out as large crowds of demonstrators made their way through Paris today, part of another round of nationwide protests. People are demanding Macron resign and withdraw wildly unpopular reforms that raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. At one point, protesters set fire to the front of a bistro known as one of Macron's favorites. The French president is on a state visit to China, and today he held talks with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping. Before the meeting, Macron said he knew he could count on the Chinese leader to bring Russia back to reason. Macron is under pressure from the U.S. to use the visit to dissuade China from forging closer ties with Russia. Macron did say France and China agreed nuclear weapons should be excluded from the conflict. Xi said China and France had the ability and responsibility to safeguard world peace. Reflections on the Humboldt Broncos tragedy. Next, the lives lost and the lives forever changed 5 years later. It was so devastating when it happened 5 years ago, it's almost hard to put into words. At an intersection in rural Saskatchewan, the bus carrying the Humboldt Broncos hockey team to a playoff game was hit by a semi-trailer truck. 16 people were killed, 13 others injured. Those left behind, the families and the injured, have been coping with the consequences ever since. Nathaniel Dove spoke to some of them about how they're marking this painful anniversary.
I heard a scream from the front of the bus. I looked and instantly a semi-truck was coming our way and everything was black.
5 years ago, Canada stopped, shocked by what happened on a northern Saskatchewan highway.
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments where, I let grief kind of take over my day and ruin it for myself and I guess the people around me.
Ryan Strechnitsky, one of 13 Humboldt Broncos injured. 16 died. like trainer Dana Bronze.
Every one of these gifts has a story.
In a gallery surrounded by tokens of support from around the world, her mother, Carol Bronze, like the others, says it doesn't feel like 5 years.
It just feels like a hole still in our lives. Sometimes the sea is calm, and the next day there's a storm and you get hit by the wave.
I went to 7 funerals in 8 days, and that's not supposed to happen.
Those who spoke to Global News say they still haven't made sense of what happened, of the lives forever changed and lost. They move forward because they have to, trying to honor the memories of their teammates and loved ones. Toby and Bernadine Boulay lost their son Logan in the crash. They now champion Green Shirt Day to promote organ donation, inspired by their son's decision.
After we walked Logan to the operating room, we left the hospital. And as we were walking down this hallway, there was a man coming with a cart with coolers. And you knew that the coolers, where they were going and what they were being used for.
They all say they'll mark the anniversary and the days after, when others died, quietly. They hope Canada does the same, that we remember our loved ones and those who need help, moving ahead, because what else can you do?
We can't control a lot of the things that happen to us. We can only control what happens after.
Nathaniel Dove, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Kluane Lake in Yukon. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Neetu Garcha will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I'll see you Saturday for the new reality. Bye-bye.